Hey guys, so I have started to do one of my subscribers requested that I do a type of series on serial killers, because I have an obsession with them. Most of you know that. So I'm going to start off with one of the most gruesome, but also infamous, and one of the serial killers that I was pretty fascinated with. I'm starting off with Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer was born in 1960, and he was a really outgoing kid, and he seemed just perfect to his parents. As he began to grow up, he got a fascination with animals, and he would go fishing with his friends, and when his friends left, going fishing, he would stay at the dock and cut open the fish because he wanted to see what the insides were like. It fascinated him. He began picking up roadkill on the side of the roads as he aged through middle school and high school, and he would take it home and go in the backyard and dissect it. It was a type of fascination with anatomy, but it also kind of gave him some sort of sexual desire, not towards the animals, but inside. When he was about 14 or 13 years old, he began to notice that he was sexually attracted to men, and he knew that it was not right. Well, I'm not saying it's not right, but he thought it wasn't right. As he aged, he went to high school, and he seemed like a perfect kid. He was good in class. His friends were laughing at him, but he ended up being a class clown, and whenever he would, do something funny or, goofy out of the blue, and another friend would do that, it would be called doing a Dahmer. After he graduated, he wanted to kill his first victim. His whole basis around killing people was he didn't even necessarily want to kill them in the beginning. He wanted to lay near an unconscious body. When he was in high school, he wanted to wait for a jogger to pass and to club him and to lay near him, but the jogger never came, so he stopped his attempt at that. So after high school, he picked up a hitchhiker, and his parents were out of the house, so his parents ended up getting divorced. I don't think that had anything to do with his fantasy and his desires, because he was desiring this before they broke up. But his parents were out of the house, and he picked up a hitchhiker and brought him back to the house, had a couple beers, and hung out for a couple hours. The guy wanted to leave, but Dahmer didn't want him to, so Dahmer strangled him and, pretty much ended up killing him. When he got done, he took the guy under the basement and dismembered him. Basically, all the time he spent with the animals, he learned how to dismember human bodies. He took the bones and he crushed them up and he spread them up around in the backyard of his family home. After that, he was still while he was in high school, he developed an alcohol problem. He would drink at 8 o'clock in the morning, drinking scotch in the classroom. So his alcoholism continued well past that. After he got out of high school, he didn't get a job. He was drinking most of the day and night. He was really bad off. His father suggested him get a job. When he never did, he enrolled him in Ohio State University. He drank his way and basically ended up flunking out of college. When he got back, his dad decided, let's try and enroll you into the Army. And Dahmer went along with it, and they ended up making him a medical aid, and basically Dahmer liked that because it helped him learn more about the anatomy of humans. And once he was after boot camp and training and whatnot, he began drinking again, and the Army discharged him early. After that, he moved in with his grandmother. and he seemed okay, like nothing was wrong besides his drinking, of course. He got a job at a chocolate factory, but he didn't stop his desires or his, feelings of those fantasies. He began going out to bars and trying to pick up guys. Sorry, I have a really bad headache. But when he picked up guys, it wasn't like he had to force them. He would bring them home, and his basic thing was an unconscious person that had no will over their body, basically. When he was at his grandmother's, he ended up killing I think it was like a 14-year-old black boy, and he kept the body in the basement and under, I guess, what would be the crawl space. He kept them there for a week until he started to decompose, but before he started to decompose, he began having sex with him while he was dead. So he's a necrophiliac, which is really bad, but that's Jeffrey Dahmer. So he ended up killing him, and then he moved out of his grandmother's because she found a mannequin in his closet among the drinking and whatnot. He had a mannequin in his closet, and he would masturbate on the mannequin because it was like a unwilled body, no will in this body. Even though it was a fake body, it was a mannequin, so it kind of fed into his desires. Once his grandmother kicked him out, he found an apartment near the gay clubs, and the rent was real low. He started abducting people, and on one case he didn't even know that he had killed someone because he had no recollection of it. He woke up next to the guy and he was bruised and his forearms were bruised, so apparently he beat him to death. He ended up going on like a 1-year killing spree, and there were 17 men total that Dahmer killed. And Dahmer didn't stop at just killing the victims. He wanted to keep the victims with him, and by that he would buy a jug, a big barrel jug, and put acid in it and learn how to decompose the bodies in the acid. When that wasn't enough for him, he had taken Polaroids to keep with him. He wanted to keep the victims a part of him. So he would boil the skin off of the skulls, and he'd keep the skulls. But once that wasn't enough, he ended up learning how to eat them. He wanted them to be a part of him, so he started eating the bodies. And he wasn't caught until 1991. Now, the whole thing is, Jeffrey had killed someone and drove down the road. The first killing, he took the body and put it in a trash bag and drove down the road one night, and he was pulled over for crossing the line, and they asked him what was in the trash bag, and he said it was trash and that there was stress at home, and he thought a drive to the dump would help. They let him off with a ticket, never looked in the trash bag. Another incident that happened in his apartment, he had a 14-year-old Asian or Chinese boy that he got up there with him, and Dahmer went out on a beer run, and he came back and the police had found the Asian boy outside, butt naked, bruised, and Dahmer interfered because Dahmer had learned a way to work with authority figures. He learned how to lie, but in a very good way, to make it seem like he was an upheld citizen, nothing was wrong with him. Dahmer brought the police up to the apartment, showed him photographs of the kid. The kid was 14, but the officers thought that he was of the age, and they let Jeffrey keep the kid, and he ended up killing the kid immediately after the police officers left. So there was a lot of things that people could have done and could have stopped the process of this long killing spree, but they just looked over it because they didn't think that before Dahmer, there was really not a serial killer quite like him in the sense of everything that he did. So after that, in 1991, think it was 1991, yeah, July, he got, one of his escapees got out and went and flagged a police officer down, and they went to the building and they ended up finding the big tub. They found skulls, they found a freezer full of meat from the victims, found Polaroids, they found everything they needed to convict Jeffrey. So he got arrested, and either there was a way to go about it. You could have either said that he was sane or insane, and Jeffrey never once said he was insane. He said he had urges to kill people, and to eat them, to keep them a part of himself. He had the homophobic urges, but he didn't never say he was insane. So he was guilty, and he got a 937-year extend at the prison. And the thing was, before he was even sentenced, by going into that prison as a serial killer, as a homophobic, as a homo, quote unquote, he wasn't gonna last long. Before he went into prison, he asked to be baptized, and he was baptized, and he kind of started changing the way he was acting. He wanted to kind of make a peace with his parents. He was attacked in 1994 in like November, in July or something, and it was like a knife wound or shift wound, but it didn't kill him. Later on in November of 1994, he was killed, and it was by a prison mate that was called Christ. It was a black man, and he had hit him over the head with a crowbar and killed him, basically. But every time that Jeffrey killed his victims, he strangled them, because he didn't want to hurt anybody. He thought that strangulation was the best way to go about it. And so he died in jail, but it was inevitable that he was going to die in jail. He was the predator out on the streets, but he ended up being the prey in prison. And the whole way Jeffrey thought about everything, there was a human side to him, and he had urges. It's just he couldn't control them, and he could, but he didn't want to, and he said he couldn't. And even in prison, he still had the urge to kill, and there's documentation that he wishes he never had those urges in prison. He just couldn't make them go away. When he was at trial, he spoke after the family members spoke to him. Some just cried, but some were very violent towards Jeffrey and screaming. And the thing was, most of his, it didn't have to be white, black, Chinese, Japanese, or Indian, but most of them were black African Americans. And I don't know if that had anything to do with his process, but the way his brain worked from childhood, up until all of this, it's quite weird. But he's compared to Jack the Ripper, basically, in the serial killer basis. And a subscriber wanted me to do a video on it because I'm obsessed with serial killers. I read a book about Charles Manson, and I'm like subscribed to Deadly Men and Snapped and all kinds of stuff like that. I don't know why, I'm just weird, but I just like wondering how their brains work, because it's kind of an interesting subject to me, I guess. I don't know, on a psychological basis. But yeah, so that's Jeffrey Dahmer, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you ever see anything like this, or see anyone acting strange like this, definitely give someone a heads up so that there's not another Jeffrey Dahmer out there, that we know of. I hope you guys have a good night. Take care. Much love. Peace out.